Hello, testing, plugged in, good to go. Fantastic. Not sure if I'm streaming yet. It's hard to tell with YouTube. Let me just make sure I'm streaming first, then we'll get started. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, this is going to be a bit confusing tonight. For me, not you. Because I'm going to be streaming from my Xbox One and my 360. I just got it all hooked up. Hopefully it'll work. Let me just minimize this. There we go. And oh good, I am streaming on YouTube, so I can minimize that as well so it doesn't eat up my screen real estate. And let's give this a test. See if that works. So I'm going to be juggling controllers. Oh, perfect, it worked. I'm going to be juggling controllers because, as you can see on the Xbox 360 on Halo 3, I've got Avalanche loaded up, and I've got a early build, our first day's build of an Avalanche remake for Halo 5 Guardians in Forge mode. I'm not going to show you what I've got done on it yet because all I've done so far is take measurements, and that's kind of what we're doing today. Is I'm showing you how I took the measurements, and I just have a few more to wrap up, and then we're gonna move on from there. But the main thing when you're doing a remake, you have to take measurements. You can't just go by, oh, I remember how this looks and how that looks. It's always best to actually go in and take measurements. In the later games, it was easy because the measurements were more or less the same, but going from Halo 3 to Halo 5, the forge is completely different. The measuring system's more or less different. And the scaling's different. The field of views, everything's different. Let's just put it there. Everything's different. I'll explain how I did it all and how I took the measurements first, but all I want to do right now is switch over so I can see what I'm doing on... and so, you know, while you see Halo 3 on the screen, I can't answer anything in the chat box because I have to switch monitors over, which I'm doing right now. There we go. So here we go on Halo 3. Now, in Halo 3, you have to, or me anyway, has to forge with two controllers because you can't really see what you're forging. So you have to have a second controller hooked up to act as your eyes, so that when you're precision placing an object, you have to zoom right in with a second camera so that you can actually see where you're placing it, because you can't really see what you're doing from the camera that's or I keep saying camera, but I call it that when I'm forging, the camera that is actually moving the piece. In order to take measurements, you have to use a device to actually measure the original, so you can transpose those measurements to the remake. And the way you do that, or I should say the way I do it, everyone does it differently. Some people find overhead map layouts online. That's nothing wrong with that. The Valhalla remake was done that way, using an overhead shot and he like laid out a grid pattern. I forget what that's called, but they use it in archaeology to know that you're getting certain chunks done at the same time. The name escapes me right now. I should have looked it up before I started broadcasting, but you get the idea. He laid out a bunch of walls in a grid format, and he matched each grid one-to-one with the original. I do it slightly different. I use the built-in forge tools to take my measurements, and I've been doing it this way since the absolute first map that I forged in Halo 3. I started doing it right away, and I've been doing it ever since, and I still use a variation of that technique today. And in order to do that, you have to change game modes. So I'm going to go change this to game mode. And the game mode, they called it game type in Halo 3. The game type that I use is territories. And I'll explain why I do that. You know what? I probably should have put the YouTube chat up on my iPad. Whatever. It's all good. I'm gonna change the iPad over to Xbox. They have a great new Xbox app on the iPad. Anyhow, here we go. The reason I use territories for forging, and this is when not just for remakes, for any forging whatsoever, is it's got two measuring devices. Here's one right here. It's the actual territory. And the way you use that is you spawn a territory. I probably don't have any left. Oh, there we go. I have one left. You spawn a territory, and you use its hill marker as your measuring stick. Okay? And as long as you're holding it in the air and floating it in the air, it's not going to shift and move on you, which is another part of the technique I'm going to show you shortly. But the cool part is, right, for some reason you're on the same team, it spawns you on opposite sides and territories. That's weird. The cool thing is you can make the territory with one controller and you can see it with the other. Okay? So you actually see this hill marker, and you set the size. Here, once again, I'm juggling controllers. So you can set the top, bottom, width, and depth. I made it so that it's it's basically a cube right now. But you place these around your map wherever you need to take measurements. Okay? And the way you do that is you put it where you want it to be. Then you, while you're holding it, you save and quit the map. You go into your files list and you reload it, always from the file list. Like it defaults to this map, but always go back into your file list and grab it from there. That way you're getting the hard drive version of it rather than the cached version of it, which doesn't make a difference now, but back then it did make a difference. There are actually two different versions of the map you're making. And it will be hanging right here. It will stay right here. You don't have to be touching it. It'll be floating exactly where you left it, right, like to the pixel, exactly where you left it. It won't shift at all. So that's one item used for measuring. Now, one advantage of this is that it does shift when you drop it. Okay. So if you want it to measure something that's at an odd angle, whoop, get back here. Yeah, the teleporters don't affect you in Forge mode. I let it go. In Halo 3, they did affect you. They don't in Halo 5. You can fly right through them in Halo 5. As I was saying, you can set these to a weird angle, and so that you can line things up with that angle. Okay, you see, because the hill moves with it as well. Or I don't know if you saw years ago I did an interview with Bungie back then, and this is the tool I use to make a curved roof on a map. Like a domed roof on a map. Not a dome, just, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. By changing this to a cylinder, making its radius really big, making the top really big, and the bottom really big. And then I hung that in the middle of the map and used it as a guideline for placing my the parts along the top of it. It was much more complicated than that, but that's basically how I did it. So that's one piece you can use. The other piece you can use is way cooler, and I'll show you a nice dark area here so I can show you. The other area you can object you can grab is a respawn area. I've only got one left because I'm using them elsewhere in this map, but respawn areas are really cool because you can do whatever you want to them. drop them, throw them around, whatever. Here, it's better if I show you if that went well as a box. First of all, the hills are nicer. They don't have that pattern, so you can use the entire thing to measure. You don't have to, like the other kind, you'd have to adjust the top and bottom, so the bright part of the hill was where you wanted to do your measurement. I keep forgetting with Halo 3 that you have to actually select it, press A, move your number, press A again. Okay, now here's what I was trying to say. You see how I've got this nice rectangle? You can pick the piece up and you can twist it, turn it, do whatever you want, and your rectangle always stays 90 degrees to your map. It doesn't matter what you do to it. The measurement always stays true to the north, south, east, and west of your map. So you can be a little more, place these a little more haphazardly, and they'll always give you a true square. Or in the case of what you would actually be using these for mostly is like so. For perfect lines, okay? And I'll show you one use of that I'm actually going to be doing with it today is because I've already got one in here placed, but I'll show you what I did. There's my actual one is there, but you see, I put this into the hole of this measuring device. You see how it's there? I very carefully placed that exactly in the hole. And that way I can use this for measuring, and I can use this for measuring, and I know that their center point is exactly the same. The height's slightly different, but the XY is exactly the same on them. So, so the reason I like that is because you light that up, and you can see everything that's on the exact center line of your map. Well, up to 60 units, that is. Okay, so you know that that's the exact center of their map. A lot of people, you might think that this doorway is the center of the map, and it's not. The center of the map is actually right there. So that's another tool you can use. So that's two good tools I've used so far. But what I'm doing for this map, because that's the longest measurement this thing does. Like the new boundaries like that go 1,000 feet in each direction. This is 60 world units, or I don't know. I'm not sure what the world units were in Halo 3. I can probably look it up, but that really doesn't matter for this, for what I'm doing it for. But what I've done in the case of this map is because I'm going kind of back to that method I was talking about where the other builders build a grid. I'm kind of doing that, but I really don't need to, because what I've done in the case of this one is I've maxed out this piece here. Always be careful. Don't press A, because that grabs it and moves it, and then it throws off all your measurements. Always just press X on it to get your numbers up. You see, I've maxed this out. The top is 2.5, the bottom is 0, and it's 60 by 60, which is the maximum size of this piece. Now, what I did in this case was, you see, it doesn't quite fill the whole map, so I have to extend it in order to make my next measurement. So what I did is I went to each corner and very carefully, oh shoot, yeah, I lost the, you know what, I'll just go look at it with the other controller. That's another thing about this is when you look at one piece, it messes up. What happened with this controller? Oh, this controller walks. It's a really, really, really bad controller, and it walks. So what I do is I use my second controller, which is the bottom screen here, as the eyes. But I also use it to set my measurements, because as long as this controller, oh, I told you this controller is just whacked. It's terrible. Can't believe I played Halo on that with this controller for years, and it's such bad dead zones on it, dead centers on it. Okay, so I highlight with one controller, and what that means is that nothing else can light up. So even if I touch this thing, nothing else will light up. So it keeps that one lit. So now I have the choice of which one I want lit up. So this is just to show you that what I did is I hung this right on the corner of this at exactly the right height that that the measurement actually comes from a point which is right about there on the shaft. That's the actual 0. So I kind of lined it up with that. So I put one here. There's one on that corner. There's one at the bottom here for measuring the front area of the map, and another one up here, and then one at each base for accurately measuring the bases. And by accurately measuring, what I'm trying to say is if I need to measure, let's say I want to measure exactly where this mongoose sits on this map because I want to replicate it on the other map, I will, here, let me back out, other controller. With this controller, actually, I'll show you what I measured last with this. That's probably the best thing to do. Let's see what that lines up with. Okay, the last measurement I took on this was to measure exactly where this base ends, okay? Or where I'm going to be ending it on the other one, because it's just... stop it. My controller disconnected because it was sitting too long. Okay, we're good to go. Yeah, it doesn't happen on the 360. You can leave this thing on all day. So here we go. That is where I'm going to end the structure of the base in the next map, or you know what I mean. Use this as a visual reference. The rock kind of ends there, the base kind of ends there. It's going to be a little, you know, iffy one way or the other, but that was just to give you an idea that on the other map, I'm going to set a marker in exactly the same place as this one. Okay, and I've done that to mark out where this is here. I've used it, you can use the bottom of it to mark where the land actually is here, because you want to get your hills to be fairly close. So you can use that, the bottom measurement of that, to measure where, you know, basically you're measuring the features of your map. And I'm going to show you exactly what I did with that next. You'll measure where like what I do is measure where one corner of each one. So I measured exactly where this corner was, and on the remake it's going to be in the same place. And then I will also measure where the ground is to that. So that on the remake the ground won't be the same level to this one as it was over there. The ground is going to be relatively the same. It won't be exactly the same, but it's going to be relatively the same. So any key areas of the map where there's a key measurement, you'll want to match it. Like I measured where the very center of this bridge is. I measured the size of the bridge using another one. I think I lost it. I had it here. But what I'll do is I'll actually spawn that respawn area, and I'll drop it right in the center. And then I'll set this up and actually measure the size of the bridge. And I think in the case of this bridge, it was 32 by 36. So I have to find a piece in Halo 4 that kind of closely matches that. I'll probably just use a bridge piece. I'm not sure yet. You measure the exactly where the teleporters sit. So I've measured this teleporter node. I've measured this spot right here, the exit of this hallway, which is this spot right here. I've measured to there. I've measured that. As I said, the bridge and all the equal parts on the other side have all been measured. Now, I haven't measured the center structure. That's what I'm going to do before we wrap up. Today's show won't be that long because I'm just going to show you how I measured. And then the next show, I'm going to show you what you do with it once you measure it, and that's really cool because we're going to be doing some things we've never been able to do in Forge before, and also a lot of tricks that people, obviously by the maps I've seen and the remakes I've seen, people haven't. You know what? I'm jumping ahead. There's something they're not doing that they could be doing, and I'm going to show you all that in the next broadcast, which is probably going to be tomorrow afternoon. Let's see. Yeah, I like broadcasting more in the afternoon because that way my UK friends can tune in without, falling asleep halfway through. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and show you what I do with the measurements, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to measure the key feature of this map. I'm going to measure exactly the line of this piece right here. I'm going to measure the farthest distance and the height of this spot right here, so I can match that. I'm going to measure the this spot right here, and the same thing on the other side, because I know they're not quite the same. They're pretty close, but they're not quite the same. And I'm going to make sure that people, yes, see there's an invisible wall. Did you know they had invisible walls in Halo 3? They did, but we just can't access them. Yeah, you see there's an invisible wall right here, a bouncy barrier type thing right here. So we're going to measure exactly where that is so we can replicate that. Okay, so now that you saw that, I'm just going to review one thing. So you saw we had the 60 by 60 box in the middle, and on each one of the four corners of that 60 by 60 box there is another thing here, and we actually use these things, the outlying ones, to take the actual measurements. And so right now I'm going to switch to my Halo 5 build. This is fine where I am here. I don't like leaving my controllers looking at important things, so I'm just going to turn them away. Oh, Gus isn't sending me an invite. I'm going to have to talk to him shortly. Oh, and this controller walks, so I'm actually going to park it inside because it likes to walk backwards. So I'm just going to let it walk backwards all at once. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to Halo 5. That just takes a second. And crossing my fingers that it doesn't crash when I do it. And I'm just going to send Gus a message that I'm streaming right now. Cool. Okay. So here we are, back home in Halo 5 Forge. I'm just going to minimize this because there we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you why I went to all that pain and how it translates to Halo 5. And I'm going to turn around right now and show you how it translates to Halo 5. Now, I was going to broadcast this, but it was really long and tedious and boring doing this yesterday. So I thought it'd be a little more impressive that you didn't have to watch doing that. Okay, anything? Okay, he's going to wait till I'm done here. Then I'm going to join him up, help him with his griffball court. Okay, so once again, here is the measurement for the center. In this case, I use named location volumes because the yellow is bright, it stands out, and I'm going to delete them all when I place the named location volumes anyhow, so it doesn't interfere with anything else I place. So, same idea. There's the center measuring stick. There's the measuring stick I use for the straight line for the center of the court, only because these ones are set to, instead of 60 by 60, they're 600 by 600. That's not exactly the same thing, but I'll explain in a second. They're 600 by 600, so if I want to get that back down to 0, I got to sit here for a minute holding the thumbstick left or right or which way, counting it all the way down, because this isn't Halo Forge PC yet, so you can't oh, hi Nilla. You can jump in if you want. What was I saying? Oh, yes, I'll get into the measurements in a minute because I was explaining how I did what I did. So there is the 60 by 60. Let's say that's the one that's in the central structure. Each corner has exactly the same thing that I use for the fine measurements. See, that's the one on the one base. There's the one for the other base. I measured, actually I didn't do this teleporter yet. These teleporters aren't in the right place, but I put the teleporter here. I'd actually, as I said, I didn't measure it. I should have, just so I could show you. But I did measure this. This is the that hallway with the teleporter in it. This teleporter right now is sitting exactly where it's supposed to sit. the edge of this is the measures exactly toward that tunnel exit. Okay. These are your placeholders for the launchers, so that when I build my launchers, all I gotta do is magnetize them and snap them in, and then delete this box. Okay. This is the bridge right here. So that's the bridge, and this just is something I can stand on when I'm looking around. This here represents the height of the ground below the bridge, so it exactly matches the original to there. Let's go to the other side. Same deal on this side. There's the passageway with the teleporter in it. And the man cannons, the functioning and the non-functioning teleporters on the other side, and there's the base on the other side. The middle of this block here matches up exactly with the not the overhang of the door, but the actual door opening to get into the base matches up with the spot I'm standing on right now. These aren't accurate. These are just so I can visually represent them. The man cannons are accurate. They are accurately measured to the other one, and I've actually set them already. Whoa! Except for that bit. I might tune them, fine-tune them once they're in there, but these, you know, this is just for blocking it out. So that shows you that. So I was talking about the 600 and the 60. They aren't exactly the same. Halo 3 uses a different world unit type measuring system than Halo 5 does. But I've calculated that if I use the same number and just move the decimal place over, so in the case of this, the original is 60 by 60, and I'm using 600 by 600. And I kind of took a rough estimate. When I transpose the numbers like that, it's going to make my map somewhere between 10 and 12% larger than the original. Okay, so this technique I'm using is not suitable for a one-to-one recreation, but that wasn't my intent with this map, and I'll tell you why. I could have done a one-to-one recreation this map, but I don't want to just recreate the map. I want to recreate the feeling that you got the very first time you play it on Avalanche. You get into the space, and the map is just huge. Okay, the map it's a gigantic map. It's one of the biggest play spaces we had up to that. Now with Halo 5. We've got these giant Warzone maps that make Avalanche just look like, you know, just one of the corners of the map basically. So it's lost that huge size. The one of the other things to consider is that Halo 3 did not have hit scan weapons, and now the weapons you can easily ping someone off from the greatest distance away. So I'm increasing the size. For that. Also, their sprint. I think the vehicles, I don't know if the vehicles are faster, but they handle better, so you can actually get around on them much easier. So as I said, I'm one reason is I'm trying to cheat and use a simplified measuring system just by moving the decimal place one over. And the other thing I'm doing is I want to make it larger anyway, because I want this map to not play like a 4v4 map once you get the Halo 5 mechanics on it. I still want it to be a big map that feels big with lots of room for vehicles, because this is a vehicle map, and I always thought that it was one of the better vehicle maps, mostly because you can't stand in your front door of your base and ping vehicles that are in front of their base, so it's kind of nice that way. But so that's my idea of the scaling for this map. Is I want it to play like if the developers are going to make a version of this map for Halo 5, this is what my view of what it'll look like. Everything else is going to be as close as I can to the original size. Or sorry, not the original size, the original scale, the original look of it. I'm going to try to replicate things as closely as possible. Some of the structures obviously can't be replicated exactly, but I'm going to do my damnedest. And I haven't played around with the different canvases here yet, but I'm obviously going to stick with this one. And the other thing I'm going to do is I want to utilize as much of the natural landscape as I can, and that is going to be what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow when I stream. Tomorrow, and here's this is going to be the fun part. Tomorrow, all I have to do to finish up this map is to measure this structure, set the man cannon, measure the distance to here. I'm going to make sure that you can't sprint and ground pound across it. I'm going to make sure that you can't do that. So if it has to be a little bit larger or a little bit longer, I have the flexibility to do that. So I might make it so that it can be done, but only on if you get it exactly right. Like you would have to get your sprint, your jump, your ground pound, and your stabilization 100% perfect on each one of them in order to make it to the other platform. Anything that was missed time, you're going to plummet to your death. So let's get right on to that. Once here, and as I said, here's the fun part. Once I get the measurements all done on this, I'm going to group this thing up into one large group with this piece as my centerpiece right here. I'm going to group all the measuring sticks to it. And what I'm going to do then, and this will explain why I've built it this way. What I'm going to do then, once I have grouped everything together, is I'm going to slide it around and basically scout locations for it. Okay, because I'm not sure which parts of this map will best fit it. It could fit best up here. It could fit best way over there. Maybe on this side. I don't know yet. And I also have the opportunity when I do that is I can turn the whole map 45 degrees and build it at a 45-degree angle if that's what it takes to use as much of the landscape as possible. So that is something we could never do before because we never had grouping. But you see this whole structure that you see, that's all going to be laid out, and actually when I'm moving it, I'm going to just go into map options. Here, watch this. You'll like this. Go into my first color, and I'm going to paint everything red or green or orange so that I can see everything. You see, they're all using the built-in colors, and that way I can make sure that this bit here, this is the land, the base of the cliff by the central part, the central structure. Okay, so that shows the ground. This is the height of the ground directly across from that. I'm going to have markers for the where the ghost sits and all that. You see, I've already got that all built up, and that way I can take this whole structure and I can just shuffle it around and move it around and just play with it for an hour or two until I get to find the exact right location where I can use the fewest number of pieces. Now I'm getting the feeling that actually all I'm going to have to do is drop it a bit. Okay, the only stipulation is that this area here, between this man cannon and this man cannon, must go somewhere above this abyss right here. So basically it's going to have to go into this location here. But the cool thing is I can take the whole thing, if it fits better, and turn it 90 degrees and make it so that you're looking up the glacier rather than down the glacier, down the mountain. So if it fits better this way, I can just turn the whole thing and make it fit this way. So that is one of the cool things we have with this forge that we've never had before as far as doing remakes, is that you can build the basic block out of your map, pick the whole thing up and move it around until it's sitting exactly where you want it to sit. Now that was the original intent I was going to do with Deadlock, but it didn't quite work out because I didn't finish the build. I just started it. But there's a nice kind of like stream that runs in that area of Deadlock, and I wanted to make that stream the actual center line of the map. But it's kind of moved over from that. Anyhow, that was the original idea. But with this one, as I said, I can put this thing anywhere I want, as long as there is some form of abyss, even if it's just this right here. doesn't look like much of an abyss, but when you turn on distance fog, you won't be able to see down in there. So that will look like it'll look like a bottomless pit when you're actually in game. So that's all I've really got to show you tonight, because I'm going to take off some and help some Griffball forgers. But this is kind of just a preview of this build, and my promise to you is every bit of this build is going to be streamed, or so you can watch it live, or you can just catch up on YouTube. But I'm going to be showing you every step along the way, and if you know me, I'm going to be talking every minute of it, so you'll be learning a bunch of stuff. So you're not just going to be watching some dude build a map. When I build, I explain everything I do. I explain the logic behind it. I explain all my little tricks, and that some of them are very advanced forge techniques. Some of them are just old tricks that I use that people have forgotten. But you're gonna learn. That's all there is to it. And even if you don't forge in Halo 5. Halo Forge PC is coming out, so it'd be good to get your skill set down first before it comes out. So anyhow, that's that. I was going to actually do all these measurements tonight, but I got talking, and I'll do that part of it off stream. So when you come back, all you're going to see is that this is going to be adjusted. This platform is going to be measured. This platform is going to be measured. This part here where you leave the central structure is going to be in position. The ghost is going to be in position, and there's going to be another wall out here somewhere that denotes the end of the forerunner structure, and then another little one of these platforms here that denotes as far as the players can move. So once I do that, I'm going to turn off all these lights so that, here, let me just get rid of them right now. There you go. So you can turn off all these areas, and I'm going to grab the whole thing, and I'm going to scout a location for it. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. So that's it for. Wait, hold a second. Some people has it. Oh, hi Gus. Oh, hi Gus. Gus was messaging me. He's in the chat right now. No, this is not going to be 4v4. This is not for the 4v4 team remake playlist. This is just for me to build because I want to build it. Every game that's come out, I've made a remake and a racetrack, and this is going to be my remake. I don't count Deadlock as my remake because I'm counting it as a dev map because it shipped with Forge basically. Or it shipped the same time Forge did, so I didn't get a chance to work on it. So this is what I'm calling my remake. And eventually I'm going to build a really cool racetrack too, now that we have gravity slide, so it's going to have a lot of cool features on it. So that's it for tonight. If anyone wants to jump in with Forge, I'm going to be helping builders with their Griffball courts after this, if you want to jump in and do that. Until then, or till tomorrow, see you later. How do I turn this thing off?